The next story I'm going to read is called Princess and the Peas, and it's by Rachel Himes, and it's a twist on the fairy tale. Is it a fairy tale? Anyway, the story Princess and the Pea, which is about a princess who, actually, it's about a prince who's trying to find his princess to marry, and he comes across a girl that he thinks would be the perfect princess. And so they test to see if she's really a princess by putting a pea under 1,000 mattresses or 100 mattresses and seeing if she can feel it. And if she can feel it, then she must be perfectly delicate and a princess. And this is a twist on that story. And I want to read to you the author's note in the back because I think it's really lovely. Okay, so it says, growing up, I was always confused by the classic fairy tale, The Princess and the Pea. Why was it so important that the princess be sensitive enough to feel a pea through all of those mattresses? Who could possibly be that delicate anyway? Now, let me just pause for a second and say that my mom always called me the princess and the pea. I feel like I'm a pretty tough person, but when it comes to sleeping, I'm pretty particular and I'm pretty delicate about how I sleep. I don't like people to touch me when I'm sleeping. I don't like lumps in the mattresses. I sleep with a weighted, like I'm very particular. The temperature has to be just right. So anyway, I might be a little bit that delicate. All right, back to the author's note. I decided to rewrite this story to be about the things that I think are truly important, love and family. In particular, I wanted to represent an African American community full of vibrant individuals, each of whom has something unique to bring to the table. I imagined this story set in the mid-1950s, taking place among the first stirrings of the civil rights movement, when it became more important than ever for African Americans, particularly in the South, to maintain strong, close-knit communities. And there's also a recipe in the back for black-eyed peas, which I think is appropriate both for Martin Luther King's Jr.'s birthday, which celebrates the civil rights movement and his place in that, but also black-eyed peas are usually eaten on New Year's Day for luck. So it feels good to read about that in January. And the pictures in this book are really beautiful. I really love the illustrations in this book. And I think Rachel must have illustrated it herself because I don't see it just says Rachel Himes. And usually if there's a separate illustrator, it's listed. So she must have illustrated it herself. Ma Sally was the best cook in Charleston County, South Carolina. Everybody knew it, especially Ma Sally. When she fixed supper, the tables groaned under crocks of collard greens, piles of sweet potatoes, and heaps of hot rolls. But Ma Sally was most famous for her black-eyed peas. When she brought them to the Sunday evening potluck at First Baptist, folks lined up just to get a taste. Ma Sally had a son, John, who was the kindest, most thoughtful man you could hope to meet. When John passed the corner restaurant on his way home after coaching the neighborhood baseball team, Miss Harriet would run out to meet him with something from the kitchen. On Sundays, Miss Hannah sat in the front row of the church choir so that she could see John in the first pew, and Miss Hattie, the town librarian, made sure that John's book requests were always ready for him. He was pretty special. One morning, John sat down to a huge breakfast Ma Sally had cooked for him. Grits with melted cheese, sizzling bacon, eggs over easy, and a stack of pancakes you almost couldn't see over. Ma, said John, I think I'd like to get married. Ma Sally frowned. I ain't sure about these local gals, John. I don't think they'd feed you right. Have you tried Miss Harriet's cornbread? Dry as dust and sour as 3-week-old milk. John nodded thoughtfully, then said, True. Don't no one around here seem to be able to cook like you. But I have to make my own way in life. I think I'd like to get married, just the same. Ma Sally was troubled. She figured it was time for John to raise a family of his own, but she couldn't bear the thought of her only child sitting down to an ill-cooked meal. Anybody who wants to marry my John, she thought, will have to cook as well as me. The next time Ma Sally went into town, she mentioned to Ma'am Della, the town grocer and a known gossip, that John was looking to get hitched. Any interested lady, she whispered, should come to her house that Sunday evening. What do you think she's going to have him do on that Sunday evening? When Pastor Vernon stopped by the grocery for green tomatoes, Ma'am Della told him,
Harriet, shopping nearby, heard. Reginald shouted to Mr. Mosley over the noise of his barber clippers that John was going to choose a bride that Sunday evening, and Hannah, hidden under the hair dryers, heard. First grader Flannery told her brother that there would be a contest to pick the best lady in town for John, and Hattie, shelving books nearby, heard. And on Saturday afternoon, ancient Mr. Jefferson told even more ancient Miss Grady the news, and the new girl in town, fresh out of college and sharp as a tack, well, she heard too. And I grew up in a small town. While I'm not African American, I can totally relate to, to news traveling this way around town. Sunday evening arrived at in fact, we had a neighbor that if we wanted something known, if we wanted the story set straight, we would tell the neighbor. And the neighbor would make sure it got spread all around the right story. Sunday evening arrived at Ma Sally's place, and one by one, so did Harriet, Hannah, and Hattie. They clustered together on the veranda, anxious as a pack of hens at supper time. I think I'll be the one to marry John, said Harriet. Doesn't he stop by the restaurant whenever I'm working there? It'll probably be me, said Hannah. Ain't he always sitting in the first pew at church trying to catch my eye? Nonsense. I'm sure I'll be the one, said Hattie. You should see the way he smiles at me over the library desk. A mighty fight was brewing on the front porch when Ma Sally flung open the door. Come in, she said. She led him into the kitchen. Ladies, said Ma Sally, if you want a chance at John, you're going to need to cook. Cook? Whined Harriet. Cook? Shrieked Hannah. Cook! Shouted Hattie. Cook, said Ma Sally. And not just anything, y'all are going to cook up a dish of black-eyed peas. Whoever makes the best peas marries my son. It's as simple as that. And so they cooked. They made a terrible mess. At last, 3 bowls of black-eyed peas sat on the kitchen table. Slowly, Ma Sally tasted each one. She chewed thoughtfully. She swallowed. Harriet's peas were too mushy. Hannah's peas were too salty. Hattie's peas tasted like nothing at all. Ma Sally shook her head. I'm sorry, ladies. I'm afraid not a one of y'all is fit for my son. Harriet pouted. Hannah sulked. Hattie frowned. And suddenly, there was a knock at the door. A voice called, May I come in? In walked a capable-looking young lady. I heard there was some kind of contest happening here, she said in a voice as sweet as molasses. May I try? Who, snapped Hattie, are you? My name, said the girl, is Princess. Princess? Asked Hannah. What sort of name is that? It's the name my pa and ma gave me, said the girl simply, because I'm special. If you're so special, said Ma Sally, prove it. Cook them peas. Everyone crowded around the stove to watch, but Princess paid them no mind. She cooked like she was born to do it. She whirled about the kitchen, slicing, dicing, and stirring. Ingredients flew into the pot one after another until the peas were simmering away. A delicious smell filled the room. Finally, sweeping the lid off the pot, Princess announced simply, Peas are done. Ma Sally dipped a spoon into the pot and took a bite. These peas, she whispered. Everyone held their breath. These peas are the best I've ever tasted. John let out a whoop and a holler. Princess smiled. Thank you, she said. My mama taught me to cook peas like this, and her mama taught her. Well, said Ma Sally, maybe you can teach my John. She hugged Princess so tight, it's a wonder the girl didn't get bruised all over. How about it, Ma Sally? You and John are 2 peas in a pod. Princess frowned. I don't know. I like John well enough, but I've got my own plans. How about this? Dancing Saturday at the juke joint? John nodded. His mouth was too full to speak. Princess continued. And one more thing. I know I'm the best cook there is, but what can you do, John? She looked around the kitchen. Why don't you show me how you scrub pots and pans? In the blink of an eye, John was up to his elbows in dishwater. When he finished, John looked at Princess questioningly, and she smiled and nodded. Ma Sally, brushing aside tears of joy, turned to get herself more of those peas. But by that time, they were all gone. And come next spring,
The end. I really like this book. I think it's really great.